And we are live. Welcome again to our second New Wednesday show, 10-minute advice, where we tackle questions regarding parenting teens and tweens in 10 minutes or less. And I'm your host, Franziska Maker, and I'm joined again by the wonderful Phyllis Fagell today. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor, a school counselor, a journalist, and the author of Middle School Matters. There you go. So she is the expert we all need. And we are going to start today. Welcome, Phyllis.
Thank you. It's nice to see you.
We're going to start today by talking about different options between K through 8, middle school, junior high. There's a lot of confusion what's out there for the middle school years. So before we go into what are the benefits of which route to take, can you guide us through what is out there and what are the differences?
Sure. And for anyone who is my generation or close to my age, and I have a 14-year-old myself, I went to junior high, which means that I started in 7th grade, ended in 8th grade. It was basically over practically before it started. My own children went through a middle school that was grades 5 through 8. I work in a school that is a K through 8, which is exactly what it sounds like, kindergarten through grade 8. And so there are lots of different iterations, lots of different ways that people approach addressing these middle school years.
Right. And so, where I live, there's really not an option for parents to choose. It is all K through 8, and then you go to high school. And I have not heard any junior high in this area. So obviously, my options would be very limited in that regard. But for parents who have the choice and are now debating what is the better way to go, tell me about the advantages of a K through 8 route to take.
Sure. And I first want to reassure anyone who doesn't have any options that a K through 8, a middle school, any of these different models can meet the needs of kids as long as they understand the phase, their need for agency, their need for voice and choice, their need for independence, their need to lead and feel like they can contribute and give back to their community. But for those same reasons, I'm partial to the K-8 model, which, as I said, is what I now work in. I have worked in a 6 through 8, which is a different middle school model. And my kids were, again, in a 5 through 8. But the reasons I like the K through 8 model, aside from the research, which shows that kids feel safer, more comfortable, they feel like top dog. Kids who go to a K-8 and don't transition during those awkward middle years feel more of a sense of belonging, and their academics don't take the same kind of hit that kids who have to transition when they're in the midst of puberty and so much internal and external turmoil anyway experience. And the other reasons that I personally like the K-8 are because I think it keeps kids younger a little bit longer. They have the influence and are the leaders for kids who are far younger than they are, which also means they have opportunities to mentor younger kids, to be a big buddy, to lead student assemblies for a large school population. It can really build their confidence. And they're really known, especially for kids who've been there for either all the way through or for many years, as they're hitting those critical middle school years when they so badly are trying to figure out who they are. And if they're good enough, they're surrounded by people who know their name. So there are K-8s that don't get it as right as others. And there are middle schools that do it really, really well. But it is that need, those developmental needs that I was just talking about, that really define the kind of experience they're going to have.
So you talked about top dog. Tell me why it is so important for the development of a child to go through these. Well, I see them like, these cycles that you are the youngest, and then you go up until you actually are the oldest, and then you kind of start again, right? It's like you are the youngest then in high school, you are the youngest in college, whatever you do, you always go through these cycles. So tell me what that does to the development of a teen. Oh, and I also want to just, for anybody listening, please post your questions. Any middle school questions, go into the box. Thanks.
Thank you. So You ask the question one more time.
Sorry, yeah. It was a question about why it's so important to be young and old and become the top dog and then start again.
Got it. Well, if you think about the phase, kids in that age group are so vulnerable. They're so insecure. They're trying to figure out where they fit in. And so the more you can do to give them that sense that they matter, that they are part of the community, that there are tons of trusted adults around them that believe in them and think they can give back, and then have that opportunity to give back, the better off they'll be emotionally.
So it is a cycle of reassurance, so to speak.
It is. And also, if you're more confident because you've been there all the way, you're more likely to take on those leadership roles. You're less likely to be tentative. You're not navigating a transition at the same time, which can take energy that otherwise would be spent maybe doing things that involve feeling that agency, exerting that independence. But if you're so preoccupied with figuring out a new bus route, getting to know 7 teachers, there's actually really interesting research showing that kids who have more of a homeroom model, meaning they have a couple of teachers as opposed to 6 or 7 teachers in that first year of middle school, tend to do better socially, emotionally, and academically.
That's really interesting. I love all these research studies. It's like, it's just so interesting, to hear all these tests that are done there. Now, is there any advantage to junior high? Is there anything where you're like, what's the benefit there? What can we take from that?
Well, if you think about a typical public middle school, maybe a 6 through 8, you have kids coming from maybe 4 or 5, even more feeder schools sometimes, and they're remixing. So you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself, which is harder to do in a K-8. You are having to learn the skills of transition. You're having to learn how to make new friends. If it's a large school and people don't know you, you have to make sure that you're preserving your reputation. You're learning how to self-advocate. You have to be really forthright. If you need extra help, people might not seek you out or notice that you're off. If you're in a K-8 and you're not acting like yourself, someone probably is going to pick up on that, which is a positive. But if you are in an environment where they can't do that, where they're not noticing that you've changed, and you can learn how to ask for that help, if you can recognize that you're struggling and need extra support, that's a life skill that they'll have forever.
Right. Yeah. So that's wonderful to kind of see that, no matter what the situation is, we can take really great advice from it, and the kids will grow from it either way.
Yes. And it's really much more about the developmental phase and the age than the setting. So any school that really gets kids in that age group can set up structures or advisories or give them opportunities to lead, do all of those things I'm talking about in terms of making kids feel like they can contribute. I've heard of a principal in my local public school system in Washington, D.C., who will have kids sit on teacher interview committees. I've heard of a teacher who will have older kids greet younger kids at the door. So there are lots of different ways that you can meet their needs, regardless of the structure of the school itself.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And we are almost coming to the end here, and I don't see any questions right now that are coming in. But you did talk about, kids sometimes having the chance to be younger for a little bit longer. And we will talk about that next week when we actually talk about kind of how COVID has impacted students in the middle school age group, and what we are seeing there right now, and how as parents we can best respond to that. Right?
Yes, for sure. And definitely kids staying younger is a positive in many ways. If you're surrounded by kids who are still playing and still out at recess and willing to swing on the swings as long as possible, we know you only get one chance at childhood. And sometimes kids can feel a lot of stress and pressure about that transition from childhood to adolescence and feel like everybody's growing up so fast. So I think it's especially a benefit for the kids who are still much more childlike than they are teen-like as they make that transition.
Right. All right. Any last advice for the middle school parents out there?
It's so fun. I really just encourage everybody to enjoy your child and support them and really treat them as if they're a little bit older and more mature than they are, even as we try to keep them a little bit younger at times.
Oh, that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Phyllis, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.